Okay, so first we're going to talk about anxiety disorders as a category. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is a normal emotion that everyone feels. It is different from fear. Fear is a reaction to an immediate threat. Anxiety is more of like an apprehension. And anxiety is essential to our well-being. It allows us to keep ourselves safe. Anxiety is normal. Everyone has anxiety. You are likely going to be anxious for, say, an upcoming test or asking someone out, right? It becomes a disorder if it's excessive, persistent, and out of proportion. So, anxiety disorders are characterized by excessive and persistent fear and anxiety and related disturbances in behavior. So, about 30% of the US will be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder in their life. That's a lot. It is the most frequently occurring psychological disorder, and it is more common in women than it is in men. However, this might be because women are more likely to report their symptoms. So one part of anxiety disorders is specific phobia. Phobia is the Greek word for fear. A specific phobia is excessive, distressing, and persistent fear of a specific object or situation, and it is disruptive because people will go to great lengths to avoid their fear. And you can see here some examples, although that's a terrible photo. About 12.5% of Americans will be diagnosed with a phobia in their lifetime. However, agoraphobia is listed separately. That's a fear of open spaces, crowded spaces, etc. So how do we acquire a phobia? One theory is through learning. It might be through classical conditioning. So for example, if you get bit by a dog, that's your unconditioned stimulus, and now all dogs become your conditioned stimulus for fear. It might be through vicarious learning or modeling. You see your brother afraid of snakes, so then you become afraid of snakes. Or it could even be verbal transmission, right? Your dad tells you this time he got a snake bite, and now you're afraid of snakes. People are more likely to develop phobias over things that don't pose an immediate threat. Like, yes, a snake could kill you, but the likelihood of that is very small. Oh, the reason that we think that is because for actual immediate threats, we're actually quite good at like saving ourselves, and so we don't have time to get anxious about them. Social anxiety disorder also used to be called a phobia. It is characterized by extreme and persistent fear and anxiety and avoidance of social situations. This occurs in about 12% of Americans. When people are unable to avoid anxious situations, they perform things called safety behaviors. So that might be anything that reduces the anxiety, right? Rehearsing a speech, resolving not to talk, avoiding the situation. And then you can see here too some of the symptoms, right? Thinking about escape, avoiding the topic, feeling nauseous, racing heart, muscle tension, right? So it is a very real fear. The thing with social anxiety disorder is a lot of times the avoidant behaviors will actually make the behavior worse. So the more that you avoid something, the more you condition yourself to continue avoiding it. Sometimes you see that people have a real tendency to self-medicate, and alcohol substance abuse is actually comorbid with social anxiety disorder because it is a social lubricant. Like I said, it's often developed through conditioned experiences, so either you have a negative experience in a group setting or you're bullied as a child. And a risk factor is behavioral inhibition. Even when you're young, if you are very cautious and restrained and very shy, you're more likely to have social anxiety disorder. And that's supposed to be genetic. Next up is panic disorder. So this is recurrent and unexpected panic attacks, worry, or avoidance as a result of the attacks. Panic attack is described as a period of extreme fear or discomfort that peaks within 10 minutes. There's usually an increased heart rate, sweating, trembling, fear of losing control or dying. It can sometimes even result in a trip to the emergency room because symptoms are similar to a heart attack or heart problem. What's interesting is that anyone can have a panic attack. Actually, about like 70% of people will have a panic attack at some point in their life. It becomes a disorder if it happens repeatedly and unexpectedly. So 23% of Americans have experienced a panic attack. Oh, I thought it was 70. That's rough. Sorry, statistics. 23% of Americans have experienced a panic attack, but panic disorder has a prevalence of 4%. So it's a lot harder for it to be a disorder. It is seen to be genetic, so 43% genetic. The locus coeruleus is the source in the brain of norepinephrine, which is associated with anxiety, which is thought to cause panic. So if you have a malfunctioning locus coeruleus, that might have an impact. Classical conditioning, again, if you panic in similar situations all the time, you're more likely to continue panicking. And cognitive factors, so if you interpret non-threatening symptoms as threatening, that will also cause panic. Then we come to generalized anxiety disorder. This is a relatively continuous state of excessive, uncontrollable, pointless worry and apprehension. About 5.7% of people in the US will develop general anxiety disorder. Women are 2 times more likely than males, but again, women are more likely to self-report, and it is seen to be an increased risk factor for heart attacks and strokes. All right, there you go.